Would you abort your child it was going to be born with severe disabilities? Why or why not? My close friend has a severely mentally and physically disabled child. It's thankless, exhausting, doesn't leave the parents any time to just be their own persons, and you don't get to experience all the joys of parenting, like watching your child grow, learn new things, build friendships and relationships, get an education and a job they enjoy. Honestly, it sucks. It sucks for her, her husband, her other kid, and most of all for the disabled kid who is in constant pain and needs 20 medications a day to just survive, and will just be sitting in a care facility for the rest of her life once her parents pass. So yeah, no, nobody wins in this. I remember hearing about a study about this exact same thing. Unsurprisingly, most parents would rather choose abortion if they knew their kid would end up with a disability. Edit. Thanks for the silver and upvotes. I'd like to make something known. When I mentioned disability from a study I heard a while ago, it was something more to do with severe disabilities. I used the general meaning of the word disability because I don't remember the exact study nor the disabilities stated in such study, thus the generalization. Although I still felt the need to use the word disability, in case mild or medium disabilities were included in that study regardless. As far as I remember to the best of my memory, I believe Down syndrome was included in it. Yes, absolutely. I worked in a pediatric ICU for 4 years and medicine has gotten too good at keeping people alive. Kids would sit for months and months connected to CRRT, dialysis, and ECMO, heart, lung machine, literally wasting away before ultimately dying. And when they die, they don't resemble anything like a kid. They look like puffy little aliens who sometimes have lost the perfusion to their hands and feet, so now they're dead and black. It's horrific and I can't imagine putting a child through that. I also cannot imagine spending my days sitting in a hospital room watching that happen to my child. Yup. I had a child with severe disabilities, and watched her suffer for months before she finally died. I would not wish that on any child. Yes. If I can reduce anyone's suffering I will. And even if I let it live, I would not be in a position to take care of someone with severe disabilities anyway. Yeah, life is ass as it is. Why would I put another human through 70 odd years of it when they're incapable of living it to the fullest from the get-go? Yes, without hesitation. If a pet is constantly in pain, e.g. terminal illness, old age, etc., we euthanize them to stop the suffering. Same with humans. If I can prevent someone from having a life full of suffering, I will do so, without hesitation. I'd abort my pregnancy no matter what. Probably yes. I'd like to give my children the best of life and opportunity, and I'd like starting it by giving them the best genetics I can. Yes, and I did at 18 weeks. Pregnancy had a 1% chance of even making it to the end, and the child would have had lifelong health issues. I still stand by my decision. In a heartbeat, yes. This coming from a parent of special needs kids, and I see their challenges and frustrations every day. I also weep for all the things they are missing out on in their lives. Yes. Didn't sign up for that. Sounds harsh, but I'm not a liar. I would not go against God's will. God loves us and sometimes gives us a miracle that tests our faith in Him and makes us stronger. It is all part of His plan, and we shouldn't question Him, even if it means that someone has to suffer for a lifetime. If you agree with what I've said, you are part of the problem and need to take a good, hard look at how you've been indoctrinated into believing some crazy, fucked up shit. Break free from the nonsense and do what you know deep down is right. Religion less than morality. If they have no quality of life, yes. I don't want them to suffer due to my selfishness. Why live in a shell your whole existence? Absolutely. It is my belief that it is morally reprehensible to decide what another person might be okay with suffering. This is going to be unpopular, but I think people who make the active choice to go ahead with such pregnancies are fucking horrible, selfish people. 100%. I've worked with many developmentally disabled adults and I see the lack of care they get, how many fall through the cracks, how they often can't even communicate their needs, and caregivers are often abusive. The toll their needs take on families, parental relationships, other children, even long-term planning, it's too much. You will lie awake at night wondering who will know how to care for them if you die, who will hurt them or let them rot, where will they live? How will you live with any kind of freedom when most family members will pull away to preserve their own? I'd terminate the second I knew for sure. My aunt got German measles when she was pregnant and subsequently gave birth to my cousin who has congenital rubella syndrome. My cousin is blind, deaf, can't communicate, and doesn't know anyone other than her mother because of smell. The doctor in the 1970s didn't believe in abortion and didn't tell my aunt she had German measles. My aunt has spent the last 50 years looking after my cousin, having her in care homes, and is now stressing over what's going to happen to her when she passes as my cousin will have no one. So yes, I would abort a child with severe disabilities. I would abort a child without them. My gene pool is terrible and if I got pregnant miraculously there's no way I'd be keeping it. I have enough inheritable diseases I could pass on and the buck stops here. Quality of life. The concept of life. I would do it if the child is expected to have a very low quality of life. Never had any doubt about it, not when I was pregnant too. The choice would be a lot harder with less severe disabilities or if you know there might be a chance they will be not much or even unaffected. Depends how severe. If the child is going to have to be on a feeding tube, never walk, never speak then yay. That's no way to live. I hope someone would pull the plug on me if I'm ever like that. If it was severe, probably. I'm in NICU now with my newborn who has a case of isolated Pierre Robin sequence and a cleft palate. Very fixable and after some plastic surgery to fix his palate and time to grow out of his small jaw and airway he'll live a completely normal life. That being said, this journey has been incredibly stressful and hard to watch your newborn have to undergo procedures. Only comfort is knowing afterwards he's going to be totally okay. For babies, children that would have to live their entire life this way, I'd prevent it if I could. This is rough. Yes, sure I can take care of the said child, but what happens when me and my spouse is gone? What happens then? Should I subject him to people who will most likely abuse him, or an impermanent home or parent figures? It's easy to say that others can take care of them, but those others also have their own lives. They won't take care of others unless it is compensated one way or the other. Disabled children also have really low adoption rate, and a high stat rate of abuse, not because people are heartless but because they can't take on that kind of responsibility. I'd abort other people's children too if it wasn't illegal. Last year we expected a child with Down's syndrome. Thank you science for giving us the opportunity of finding out she had chromosome issues and secondly have an abortion. Yes BQ someday I will die and the system to take care of disabled adults is horrible. If I had a say in the matter and knew it would have severe difficulty navigating life, I wouldn't want to put my kid through the struggles of disabilities. I have other children. And we need to be a two-income household. How will this impact all of us? I've seen social media day in the life with mothers of babies and toddlers who just lie in a makeshift hospital in their home. What is the quality of life for that tot I wonder? It's intense. Then of course as a parent I'm not going to live forever which leaves my older children as legal guardians. I don't think it would be fair to our children or the child. I do not take abortion lightly. But I think we would have to obliterate the child. I hope I'm never put in a situation where I'd have to answer this question. Depends on where you draw the line on severe. For example, if the kid was going to just be born without the use of their legs but otherwise was fine, probably not. If the kid was going to be born with intellectual disabilities to the extent that it is impossible for them to ever be self-sufficient, or born with conditions that cause chronic pain and suffering then yeah, I would. My friend was advised to do so and ended up not doing it. Now the whole family is suffering because of that decision. The child has so many disabilities that he needs constant monitoring and is a siphon of money for medical care ad operations. His older siblings don't get enough attention as a result and the mom is in endless stress and heartbreak state. The father couldn't handle it and took himself out of the picture. The child will never appreciate the good things in life because of his disabilities, so he just exists. It's just cruel for all parties involved. Yes, I get bonus XP for the spawn kill. Yes, it is horrible to condemn your child to a life of torment and suffering. Note, the question states severe disabilities. Yeah, the kid is going to be miserable. Cut the fetus. Yes, there are no rational downsides to doing that. The fetus doesn't have any feelings so it can't get hurt by not being wanted, and you'd save yourself, the child, and society as a whole huge amounts of energy. First of all, I'm a man. So naturally we're talking about what I would do if my wife had a severely disabled fetus. To answer the question absolutely. I will not sacrifice my entire life to be a caretaker and give up on all the good that life can offer. If my wife would refuse to have the abortion, I would of course try to convince her, as hard as I can, but if she would still refuse, I would leave her. If she doesn't want a normal life, that's on her. Call me a horrible person and a bad man, I don't care. I've seen enough parents with severely disabled children to know that there is nothing that makes such absolute misery worth it. You don't abort a child, you abort a pregnancy. Yes. Their child would 100% be a burden on society and me. People who say their severely disabled child is not a burden are lying. Severe disabilities require time and money to treat properly. I definitely won't be making enough money to properly care for a severely disabled child and later adult. I see people with their adult children who have severe disabilities that require lifelong care and they do nothing but care for them. They don't have lives outside of their child is their life. Marriages tend to break apart due to these situations. I don't want to lose my partner. Yes, no one deserves a life like the one they'd have. Depends on the quality of life the kid would have, and also what financial position I was in. Hard to say without being in the situation though, and I would also want to do some research on the condition my kid would have and how it would affect them before making my decision. When little man was still baking, my wife had a few complications, and we had some testing done. One of the things that came out of the testing was they said he had like a 50-50 chance of one of the trisomy defects. The choices were basically Down syndrome or coming out looking like a Ripley clone from her last Aliens movie. They suggested we abort and try again. We said fuck off, we don't care. If he's Downs we will love him just as much, if it's worse we will cope. Came out perfectly fine. We sometimes talk about what would have happened if we had aborted a completely normal child we desperately wanted to have, because some doctor thought we wouldn't want to risk a Downs baby. I've had this conversation with my significant other already, but I'll put my answer here as well. Yes, I would. I grew up with one of my sisters being born with multiple physical and mental handicaps. She was literally always in pain. She had 47 surgeries in her 6 short years of life. She was always sick, she was always in the hospital. The hospital bills financially crippled our already lower middle-class family. When she died, I watched it rip my parents apart. I would not want to bring a child into the world that was essentially born to suffer. I watched it happen, man. I just don't think I could live through it again, especially as a caretaker the second time. I think a better question would be, people who didn't abort a child that was going to be born with severe disabilities, why and how do you live with yourselves? Yeah, only because life would fuck him over and they wouldn't be able to do many things. 100%. It's the right thing to do. Of course. My good friends had a baby who lived for a few days in ICU in one of those incubators, after a full pregnancy and birth. His urinary tract organs weren't formed properly. It was absolutely tragic and completely broke them emotionally. They are now getting their eggs and sperm thoroughly tested for genetic issues before trying again. I wish the issue could have been detected early so they didn't have to go through this, but it just wasn't possible. Honestly, I would end the pregnancy. It wouldn't be fair for me to keep a child knowing they would need constant medical attention and then passing that responsibility to my other children when I pass. I live in Texas and that is why I decided not to have any more children. I have 2 children that are physically and mentally healthy. I don't want to take my chances on a third with the abortion issues we have in this state. I'm disabled and I wish I wasn't born. Being in pain every second of my life kinda blows. Wish I was aborted, so of course I'd abort a fetus that had severe disabilities. No one should suffer like this. No. My sister was severely disabled. She passed away at age 13, and when my mother was pregnant of me, the doctors strongly suggested an abortion, as according to them, I would be mentally and physically disabled as well. Except from roaming on Reddit, I am a completely healthy, married man with children. Yes. Although I'd abort any child, don't want any kinds. But assuming I'm trying want a baby, I don't think it's ethical to deliberately carry to term a child that you know is going to have severe disabilities. It's no different to drinking heavily or using drugs during pregnancy. I'm not a woman so I can't do it myself, but I would still want it aborted.